Welcome to the very first episode of the Neuro's Journey. My name is Samantha Warren, and I'm a speaker and a storyteller, and I help people share their story and use it to transform other people's lives. And in this first episode, I'm here to introduce you to the voice, the heart, and the lived experience behind the show, Steve. This podcast was born from a very real transformation. Steve has lived through trauma, addiction, loss, collapse, identity crisis, and healing, and a complete rewiring of how he experiences himself in the world. But this is not a story about pain. It is a story about rewrite, about learning that your life is not something that happened to you. It's that your story can evolve as you evolve. Today, we're starting at the beginning to show what happens when someone chooses to meet their life with courage, curiosity, and action. Steve, thank you for trusting me to help you share your story. I would love to start with this question, which is why this podcast and why now?
We're going to talk about me a lot today, so I'm just going to talk about you a little bit first, if you don't mind. I just, when you talk about the hero's journey and you move along the path towards something, one of the key components of it is allies appearing. And I kind of feel like I conjured you right up. I mean, I was writing this summer. I want somebody young and vibrant and fun to be on my team to help me improve the way my content is and get it out there more broadly. And within a couple months of that, you showed up, and I've just somewhat appreciated how wise and fun and passionate about this whole thing you are. So I have so much love for you, Sam, and
thank you.
Feel just awesome that we're doing this together. And thank you for helping me kick off the podcast like this.
Yeah. It's an honor. I'm so excited to dive in.
Yay. So why the podcast and why the podcast now? Well, I would say the podcast specifically because I'm coming at this from an experience of just a person who's actually walked through this path. So much of what you hear about healing trauma and doing this is somebody who has some great modality or they're a doctor or whatever. But when you're in the middle of it, and you don't even know at the beginning, like I did, what trauma was, and you're just kind of rooting around trying to figure out how to feel less broken and damaged inside. It can be confusing and lonely, honestly. And so what happened with me is I have a pretty deep experience with childhood trauma that really set my life up in a certain way, which includes sexual abuse, witnessing a mass murder, living in domestic violence. And I had been healing and on a really good path for a pretty long time, 4 or 5 years. But still inside, I had what I call the addict's body. I mean, also, one of the ways I coped with this was heavy addiction and being a crack addict at some point. And even though I was making a lot of progress, I haven't had a drink in 3.5 years. I've lost 40 pounds. I met the love of my life. I mean, everything has been improving. But deep down inside, my body still felt unsafe to me. And I had an experience this year where I woke up and things just felt different inside. And it was it was an emotional thing because these things happened to me when I was so young. I don't remember myself before it. And you, at least me, and a lot of people I've talked to get this experience of feeling like there's something wrong with them, like they came out of the womb and they were damaged or broken. And when it shut off, it was like this ratification that I'm not innately bad. And that I had some things happen to me and my system adapted to it. And now I'm moving through that. And I know that there are millions of people out there that have had these experiences that feel a lot of shame, that are in hiding. A lot of the terrible things of trauma is that you're going through it alone, especially as a kid. My sexual abuser told me he was going to kill me if I spoke. And so that brought me inward. And so I didn't share it with the people that might have been able to help me. And I know now just telling the story is helpful to people. It's helpful to me. I mean, it helps my brain process this and make it a memory instead of a feeling inside. And also, people hearing stories like this um, is helpful to them
Yeah.
because it also, their brains have mirror neurons. And when they're hearing that, they begin to process their things. And it's really about trauma is about taking it out of your body where it still thinks it's happening and starting to process it as a memory that, this shit happened 50 years ago to me.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't need to impact my daily life today.
Yeah.
And so, but not just telling the story. I've been blessed to be able to have the type of personality, and I've had some success in my life. So I've done so many treatments that, I've flown to the Naval Academy and had my neck injected with anesthesia and had like a palsy response and to drain trauma out of me. And I've done so many different things that I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit, that I can also just tell people like what it's like to uncover your sexual abuse in hypnosis, what it's like to deal with it under a psychedelic experience, what it's like to feel like this and how it acts, and just sort of have a guide to what it is. And what I really feel like I have to offer is an approach for somebody who's had these kinds of experiences to say, all right, especially if it's complex, you're not going to walk into a doctor one day and get a treatment and walk out of there. You're going to have to orient your life around this
Yeah.
thing. And it's the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. And I don't really like the work. I mean, I like work. But I mean, if you call the work like learning about yourself and becoming free in a way that you never thought that you could, then that's work. So basically, when I had that change in early 2025, my life radically changed. And even though it was going along the way, there was just this internal dis-ease that kept me sort of in my same patterns. And when that happened, I mean, within 10 days of it, I started to wind up my finance company. And I just said, like, this is really what I want to do.
Yeah.
And like a lot of what I was doing in my life was an adaptation to just deal with this stuff. And I'm good at managing money and finance and all that. It's not my soul's purpose,
Yeah.
and to whoever it is, that's great. But for me, I was like, I just want to tell this story. I want to be helpful in some way. I want to honor my mom and little Steve, who took a lot of blows for me, by making something of the sacrifice that they made for me.
Yeah. That's beautiful. There's a quote that I heard once, and if I remembered who it was, I'd reference them, but it was what we don't speak, we store.
Mm,
And I feel like podcasting and just the art of storytelling and like really sharing the depths of what you've gone through with others is the most healing and liberating thing that you can do. I know I've
mm.
had my own experience. That's why I started a podcast company in the first place, right? Is like podcasting is such a healing modality. And I'm so excited to see all the lives that you touch with this. I know it'll be millions, if not millions. Like I know that. I know that with certainty. So yeah, and I really appreciate your vulnerability. And I think that it helps anyone listening, myself, you, all of us, just to shed the shame.
Mhm.
Like when we start sharing what's in the shadows, the shame can't live. So I'm excited to go on that journey and talk so much more about what you've gone through and where you want to take the show. So
Thank you. And I would just
yeah.
say on that point, I mean, I mentioned it before, but for me specifically, this has a lot. I mean, there was a lot of fear around doing this
Yeah.
because, so when I was told don't speak about the abuse, I started stuttering, and I did that for 10 years or more, very significantly.
Yeah.
I was the kind of little kid that you feel bad because it's hard to listen to them and they're stuttering on every syllable. And it's so frustrating because I could go home and I could read Moby Dick alone in my bedroom and I would never study, but then I would get out in front of people and I would stutter.
Yeah.
And so part of this just feels like, the shit that somebody put on me the ways that it made me smaller, like I'm just gonna have the courage to figure that out
Yeah.
and sort of try to shine my light to whatever degree it is helpful to people in the world. And I'm not going to let like what some perpetrator did to me when I was 6, um, control my life when I'm 56.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just love this so much. We're going to talk a little bit about the emotional environment that you grew up in and kind of what happened in your childhood, but I think also just because you are 56, right? That's
Hmm.
and it's like a lot of people believe that their life ends after they're like 30,
Mm.
like they can't make a change. And so it's also really inspiring that you are completely changing your life direction, your purpose, career. You are sharing all of this at this age where you still have 5 decades of life left. Like there's so much time left, and so for everyone listening too, it's just a reminder of like it's never too late to change your story. So I'm excited for you in this.
Amazing too. And I so hope to help. Like, I really enjoy working with younger men. I mean, I think if these things didn't happen to me, I would have oriented towards working with teens or something like that. And I hope if you're 30, that you hear this and you can avoid a lot of years of that. But to your point, you know everything that is my personal growth and that's been really good for me has really happened after I was 50.
Mm,
I mean, of course, the birth of my kids and so many things were important before then. But if you're talking about me starting to like overcome the things that happened to me, that started after I was 50. And I don't see and it's not over. Like
yeah,
I'm in the midst of this and
yeah,
I will be in the midst of it until the day that I die. But yes, like it's not too late.
yeah,
And you can also change the way that you feel, the way that I felt at 50 in my body. I mean, I was 50 pounds heavier. I woke up sore. I felt like shit. I was like really contemplating losing the things that I really loved, like skiing and surfing in my life. And now my body feels incredible. I'm not, an addict. So many things can change and
yeah.
you can feel younger at an older age than you ever did.
Yes. I love this. I love this. Okay, so let's go back in time. I
Okay.
want to talk a little bit about the emotional and the physical environment that you grew up in and kind of just give us a little bit of context for, young Steve. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, like everybody's, I mean, it was complex with a lot of trying things and also a lot of love. And so I guess maybe before we start with all the trying shit, let's start with the love. I grew up with an incredibly loving and supportive mother. And, it's just one thing that I can say if any of you know a kid that's struggling, like one person can be the difference in someone's
Mm,
life
mm,
to like, to love and see their value and see what they are. And I was fortunate that I got to live with that person. And my
mm,
mother was an extremely loving person, not only to me, but to everybody, really. And so I got infused with that. And, what was interesting is, my other parent, my dad, I mean, I believe that he loved me and he did the things that his generation was told to be a father, but he was also a war hero, landed on, Normandy Beach and D-Day, traumatized, violent, and alcoholic. And it was scary,
yeah. Yeah.
and so there was abuse of my mom. There was always the potential for something to explode. And if any of you have grown up in an alcoholic house, you know the kinds of things that you do. You subvert the way you walk around and you're
Yeah.
scared and you move. And so inside the house, I had this kind of counterbalancing thing. And then outside, I was taught that by my own experience that the world was scary. So, like, when I went out and played in my neighborhood, somebody abused me. When I just went to my first sleepover, I witnessed a mass murder just randomly. So I kind of had this environment that, inside my house, it's scary, but there's some love at the core. And outside the house, like anything can happen. And the people that are supposed to protect you don't always protect you.
Yeah.
And, even when you're just walking down the street, like something can happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've had several defining traumatic moments
Hmm.
early on. Can we talk a little bit about some of those on today?
Yeah. I mean, I think that, I've spoken about a bunch of them, but in a fairly compressed time period. I found my best friend in my neighborhood floating dead in his swimming pool. He'd just gotten out. We were 4 and 5 years old. Fish him out of the pool, the whole thing.
Yeah.
First time I ever slept over at someone's house, just on the way home, I witnessed a mass murder. So I was in the car. Someone's coming up the street shooting and killing people. And he pointed a gun right at me
Oh my
and
God.
turned around and killed a mother and killed another person and shot somebody else. And then he was shot. And it was big national news. If you look up the Wheaton massacres, you can read about it. And then in my neighborhood, just going out to play, I lived near a church, and not a priest, but like a workman there started to sexually abuse me. And so, that set the context, and it wasn't like I was always safe at home either.
Yeah.
So, it just set up this environment which really just made me feel like nobody's there for me,
Yeah.
and I there's something wrong with me, because, like, why does all this stuff keep happening to me?
Yeah.
And I was just a little kid that wanted to have fun. I mean, when I tap into it, it's just like basically like little Steve is like, I just wanted to fucking relax and have a
Yeah.
little fun,
Just be a kid.
Yeah, I'm a
Just be a
simple
kid.
fucking dude,
Yeah. 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 And I mean, of course, if that's, our brains, our subconscious minds are being formed so much from 0 to 7, specifically 0 to 14, but really 0 to 7 is like where we are sponges. And
Mhm.
it's like all those events happened at such a young age for you. So of course that's going to shape your worldview. And, it's like, what do you think from those foundational moments in your life, like what do you think that then created? What was that story that you started to believe or tell yourself about either yourself or the world as you started to grow up and move into like the teenage years and beyond? What was that mentality that you went into the world thinking?
Well, I'm glad you touched on like developmental phases, because really, in that 0 to 7 year time period, what was happening is as my brain was developing, I was learning that I need to really be aware with my fear circuits.
Yeah.
And so, until this year, I had this nervous system that just felt, the way I could best describe it is if you just had a near miss auto accident, and your whole
Like
body's
all
like
the time.
revved up. It was more like kind of coming on during the day. Like,
Yeah.
when I wake up, I think, whatever's happening in sleep or whatever, I kind of feel a little more like normal,
Yeah.
but it builds throughout the day. And so that's why, so many of us end up as addicts who've had these experiences, because at some point you're just like, just can't resist this
Yeah.
feeling anymore.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of my experience is more like visceral and somatic. But I've tapped into the story more, and the story itself that, really animated my life is that, like, I'm a bad person and nobody should ever love me.
Yeah.
And, I kind of I kind of knew that, like, that wasn't true in my intellectual mind.
Yeah.
But the other parts of me that were surfacing that were more overpowered,
Right.
because what happens when you have these traumas is it kind of shifts the power of your brain. So the prefrontal cortex, which helped me make sense of all these things, was underpowered,
Yeah.
and the fear-based things were overpowered. So even though I knew that that wasn't true, I mean, I've been lucky. I've had love in my life, and even when I honestly, the actions that I was putting out there didn't really deserve it, like, I've always had people who've cared about me and loved me. So I could convince myself with an intellectual argument that it wasn't true, but my body and my
Mhm.
deep down subconscious thought it was true, those
Right.
things.
Yeah. Yeah, and they say, like, the body is the subconscious mind.
Hmm.
So, it's like we can tell ourselves, "I'm lovable, I'm worthy, all this," but if our body doesn't believe it, then that's where, like, our work is, and I'm excited to hear more, and we're gonna, share more of this, of how you've started to change that story and have
Hmm.
transformed that story and have moved that story out of your body,
Yeah.
and like worked with the body, because that's such an important part of healing is you can't do it without the body.
Yeah, I mean that, really just sort of shifting into those types of modalities. Talk therapy was helpful for me to
For sure.
understand the basic layout, but it never
Yeah.
really changed my behaviors.
Yeah. Yeah.
And really the things that you're talking about were the things that started to be like, oh, like behaviors are shifting. I'm not an addict anymore. I'm not this, I'm not that. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about those things.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the kind of coping strategies. Like, you went through a very traumatic childhood, arguably the most traumatic childhood I've ever heard of in somebody that I know closely. And you learned how to cope.
Mhm.
And so talk to us about what you did or how you made sense of the world to be able to exist holding all of that and not knowing how to process it. You had to do something. So kind of what happened as a result of that in childhood, teenage years, and beyond.
Yeah, I think that, I'm just lucky in the way that my system oriented, which was the future is going to be good if I can make the future better.
Sure.
So I always kind of had that. And I had also the feeling is I want to get the fuck out of the present.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so, some of the coping skills is, I think a good analogy for trauma, which is, trauma is at the root. I mean, when you talk about, anxiety, depression, mental illness, overwhelmingly, you're talking about trauma.
Yeah.
And it's really like this invisible cause, which, if you understand a little bit about it, it's like it's a brain injury.
Yeah.
But I like this analogy of it is it's kind of like an overwhelming experience that changes your brain function. And if you look at it like if my house caught on fire and it rewired itself so the fire alarms were always going off, that's kind of like what trauma is. And
Mhm.
so you probably wouldn't die of a fire in that house, right? The fire alarms are always going off, but it fucking sucks to live in it, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, the intent of those alarm systems, the intent of the somatic experience that was much of my life is to move you the fuck out of what's happening right now.
Yeah.
But that switch was always on for me. So I oriented around escaping it. The first time I was ever blackout drunk, I was 5. It was like my brother's high school graduation party, and they gave me one little Dixie cup. Oh, you can have a Dixie cup of beer, which I kept and just filled up throughout the night until
Wow.
I ended up, like passed out in the yard. And even when I didn't have, have like experience like with drugs or what I was obsessed with drugs, even when I couldn't get them. I
Yeah.
mean, in fourth, fifth, sixth grade, I was just like drawing pictures of weed and like all this kind
Wow.
of thing. I just like my
Yeah.
body knew that was my way out.
Yeah.
And, I started at the first ability to get things, I got them.
Yeah.
So I was like smoking cigarettes in elementary school. By the time I was in high school, I was, doing every drug and selling cocaine and getting DUIs but, I think one of the things that saved me was I did think the future could be better. So
Yeah.
I oriented out of the present in all ways, basically, like avoid the present, look towards the future, which maybe given my circumstances was a wise adaptation at that time.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you were like thinking about, okay, how can I escape this moment to create something better?
Yeah.
And I know we'll probably talk about your business and stuff too, because that obviously set you up on a path to pursue, this life of freedom that you wanted or what you thought you wanted, right? Like, so let's talk about this a little bit. Like, was there a moment for you, you're coping, you're drinking, you're doing drugs, you're all this. Was there a moment in that time where like you kind of had a sense like I can't keep doing this? Or was it not until down the road where you started to realize the repercussions of all of those actions that you were taking?
Yeah, it's interesting because you could orient around all kinds of things. We talked about drugs and alcohol, but I also used business and money success. So, after college, I became pretty successful young. I was managing hundreds of millions of dollars in my 20s and making a lot of money with no responsibility and also a crack addict. So it felt unsustainable in some way, but also it felt like there was just something wrong with me.
Yeah.
And so it was like, well, I have this sort of outward success, and I am doing the best I can given the at that point what I felt was this like fucked up, damaged, broken person that I just was. Um and so I don't know that I ever really thought that I could change it, even though my actions would indicate that I was doing a lot of stuff. But to get to your main question, there was a turning point where, interestingly, it happened like in the mosh pit of a Red Hot Chili Peppers concert.
I
So,
love this.
I had a psychedelic experience. And, the background of it is I'd just come back from a trip to Greece. I'm Greek. All four of my grandparents were born in Greece. You take your kids to Greece when you have that history. And I took my 14 and 16-year-old son and daughter, Athena and Apollo, to Greece. We spent a month there. And it was this amazing time. And I drank every day during it. I mean, Greeks drink at lunch and this and that. And I wasn't a disaster on that trip, but it was too much. And on the plane ride home, I was in first class, they were in back. And I just got like really hammered and I scared them, like I was, forgetting things on the plane, and like my teenage kids were sort of having to like manage me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I get home and I sort of say, okay, I'll put alcohol down, which I've done so many times before. And I go to this concert with my friends. I'm not drinking. I said, I'll be the designated driver. I'll take zero point 0.4 grams of mushrooms, which is not a lot.
Yeah.
That's not like some medicine dose. And I'd done those things before. So I think this was tapping into some other psychedelic experiences that I've had. But in this moment, really, I think I felt for the first time like this stuff drop away from me and actually felt safe in my body. And I started to hear kind of a voice that was different than the voices that had been in my head, which were mostly like loud and fearful and scared.
Mm.
And this voice was like much more calm and wise. And it basically just like laid out my whole life, like you've operated like the world is like this scary and dangerous place and that life is out to get you. And that's not true. And in fact, everything that happened to you for a reason. And life isn't out to get you, life is for you. And if you just calm down a little bit and slow down and listen to this voice, life will get better for you. And I was fortunate to get COVID there, and I didn't know anything about psychedelics then. I know a lot about them now, but integration is a big part of like actual behavior change. And because I got COVID, I laid in my bed for a couple of weeks and I just really tapped into that voice and I listened. And it told me that like, drinking is not for you. You got to get out, meet new people, do new things, So I haven't drank since that day. That's over 3.5 years ago. I started a yoga practice. I've lost a bunch of weight. Like my behaviors started changing. And really what became my true north, my like guiding thing is like anytime I heard that voice, I just did whatever it was without, and I'm the kind of dude that like, if I was going to buy a TV, I'm like making a spreadsheet, and so, part of the like messaging there was like, you're squeezing all the magic out of life by trying to control like everything. And like, actually, like if you start to believe that life is for you, then you don't need to control everything. Because even if something that's difficult happens, it's like life is your guru. So just relax.
Yeah.
And so that's really, that's been, since then, my life has radically changed.
Yeah.
And has led me to, abandoning, a lucrative career for this one, which we'll see what it is. But I feel super blessed, and I feel like I have a purpose in a way now that I never had access to before.
Yeah. It's beautiful. I have a core belief that our soul chooses our life and goes through a bunch of fucked up shit basically to give you the like spiritual armor to then live out your purpose.
Hmm.
So it's like you have all these experiences in childhood or even in adulthood that shape you and mold you. And if you wake up and you hear the call, which you did, it's like you got called in a mosh pit. Not everyone gets called in a mosh pit. Some people get called when they're driving or there's like a traumatic thing that happens. Yours actually happened in kind of a fun way, right? Where you're in the midst of listening to music where you get a call, and if you pick it up, whether you pick it up or not, it's going to keep calling, but you picked it up. And it's like now you're taking everything that you've gone through and using it as armor and as like fuel to then live into your purpose. And I believe everyone has this. And it's like so cool watching this, like you be in the midst of that transformation of you could have kept going down that path. You could have kept being successful and, managing money and doing the thing, but you were like, wait, there's something else. And there's that moment I think a lot of people have where there's like that turning point moment of waking up and being like, there's something deeper. There's something bigger here. And so it's just really magical hearing you share your perspective of, whoa, like that was a calling. You listen to it. Not everyone listens. A lot of people don't listen until they have to listen. And maybe you felt that. I'm curious, did you feel like you were at that point in the mosh pit where you feel like you had to listen? Or like what about that was different?
Yeah, it's interesting because it was like I got a lot of ratification on how my life was before. I
Yeah.
looked, I mean, I had the family, the whole thing, success. But yeah, I think what really happened there was it was interesting. You mentioned armor.
Yeah.
And I think, I'd have a slightly different take on it that I think that setup is real, right? We come here and we create this armor because we think that we're fragile and we
Mhm.
think that we can be hurt and all those things. And really, the way that I look at spiritual growth and like what I'm trying to do is actually pulling back the armor
Mhm.
and trusting enough that I can trust in whatever's going to happen. It's going to be for me to release some of the armor. And so it's been since that date a continual kind of doing that, of putting myself in situations that are a little more edgy for me, or places that I wouldn't, like anywhere. I mean, going anywhere not drunk for me was edgy.
Yeah,
I mean, I
yeah.
wasn't like some, like terrible alcoholic, but I always used it for like any social situation. And I was an alcoholic. I mean, I drank every day,
Yeah.
and some days I drank a lot and some days I didn't. And even that. But so, yeah, I think it's been this slow process of trusting and trusting more that I can do what feels right to me,
Mm.
and I'm the only person that needs to feel that way. And it's funny, like, to start in like social media, because I've never really been in anything with like likes and follow, like, subscribe. Please do that. But it's trying to make this like my own inner purpose
Yeah.
without outside validation, because everything was so like outside focused to me. And
Yes.
so how do I play that balance in my purpose now in a medium in which I want people to watch along, because I think, there's things that people could learn and be helpful.
Yeah, beautiful. What are some of these like practices that you currently use or have used to help you get into a state of like being more regulated and like being able to hear your inner voice?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, so a couple things really. What has been helpful to me is to develop a framework around the healing for myself,
Yeah.
because what happened is I got so oriented towards a particular practice, and I would hear about something, whatever it was, this practice, that thing, this thing. I'd be like, oh, that's going to do it. And then I would do that and I would get real into it. And then it really wouldn't change the core thing,
Yeah.
even though I was healing. That I was like, once I learned what trauma was, which is basically like it's a brain injury.
Yeah.
And just the way you tear your knee up, you get it x-rayed, you figure it out, you do it, you can heal your brain. And when you look at it as an injury instead of like a moral failing, it's sort of easier. So I developed for myself business techniques, which I did with all my businesses, which is put values to them. So curiosity, courage, and action. and sort of said, all right, I have my own system. Nobody's coming to my rescue. Like, I need to figure this out. So, what's going on inside of me? What's physically happening? What are the practices? And then having the courage to do them. And, and some of them is, forgiving your sexual abuser and like sitting with that and really feeling it. That takes courage.
Yeah.
You know,
Forgiveness is huge.
yeah, and it's really for you more than them. But there's something about it. It's just like built up, and you just don't want to face it. And then the third part is just the action. I started being like, I'm doing something every day.
Mm,
So I've gone through so many practices that are like really impactful for me. Like I mentioned, talk therapy. I think not that great for this, honestly. Okay, I mean, do it a little bit and learn some
sure.
things about it. Medications, they're over prescribed. I don't think they really work for trauma. Certainly not in my experience. The things that worked were things like psychedelic assisted therapy.
Right.
Even though we talked about the Red Hot Chili Peppers, I mean, I've done it in the presence of professionals who've been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
Really helped me in a lot of ways. Somatic therapy, where you're really getting into the feelings of your body and tapping into like what it's like to actually feel this way. And that, when you have this kind of fearful body, oftentimes it's concentrated somewhere, right? So for me, I got it in my stomach and my throat.
Okay.
But I also learned that even though that was happening and I would be so laser focused in it, my feet felt fine. Like,
Mm,
so I started to learn how to tap into parts of my body that felt safe.
yep.
So somatics were really important. I think everybody should scan their brain and look
Mm,
at it.
yeah.
You can do it for less than $500. I've scanned my brain, I've seen my brain function, and I've worked on it with neurofeedback, and I've seen it progress, and I've seen how my life has improved as my brain health has progressed. And then other things. I mean, I meditate. I'd like to say daily, but not really. Maybe 5 times a week. But I
Sure.
have a meditation practice,
Yeah.
saunas, breath work, just getting outside and being in nature without headphones on,
Hmm.
even if it's sitting, it doesn't have to be active exercising. Just connecting with my partner. Really what I've done is I don't feel like I've healed myself in some way that if I stopped all this shit, I would be good again.
Yeah.
What I've done is I've learned how to live in a way that is fucking awesome. Like, it's way better than when I was a drug addict.
Hmm.
I get to enjoy the things that are happening now. I mean, I remember vividly being at a Christmas Eve party with my friends and family. And it was at the time I was young and in my 20s, and I was getting a lot of adulation because I had young success. And I left that party and I immediately called my crack dealer, and I smoked crack all the way until Christmas morning. I could not even handle like what should have been good feelings.
Hmm.
And so now I've just learned how to like operate in a certain way as a process. And I'll be doing that until the day I die. I mean, I think like the spiritual part of it, I also feel like um, I'm part of something bigger. And I feel that a lot more directly now. And what's really been a change for me and got me wanting to do this for the rest of my life is not only am I part of something bigger, but I feel like I'm adding to that like source.
Mm,
So it's like when I continue, if I can be more loving, if I can be cooler to my people, if I can just act the way that I know that I want to, and I can learn things and become more wise, not only am I doing that for myself and the people around me, and hopefully the people watching, but I'm just adding to the overall goodness of where we come from, what everybody's a part of, and what we're all going back to. And so, it's inspiring just
yeah.
to like do things. And even if that means, oh, I didn't get any sleep, I'm going to go and just like do sauna and cold plunge or whatever, because I know that's good for my brain and body. And sauna is actually great for your physical health and your mental health. I mean, it's
Hmm.
studied and proven take saunas 4 days a week. I mean, you will have less depression, less anxiety. I know that to be true. So it's not, I mean, saunas feel great too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love them. I love them.
Yeah.
To me, it sounds like even what you're sharing too, it's like you went from so much looking outside of you, right? And like how things looked, which is like very much rooted in ego, right? And it's great to have things look a certain way, but if it doesn't feel good, then we will be deeply unfulfilled. I think Tony Robbins says like the ultimate failure is success without fulfillment.
Mm,
And it's like to me, all these practices that I'm hearing, it's you being connected back into your body, right? And that's actually how we start to heal is being connected to our body. So much of the United States population, but the world is like completely disconnected from their neck down. Like
mm,
they live head up and they're in their head all of the time. And it's like how we are conditioned, right? We aren't taught how to be embodied people. And oftentimes people, I know this has been my experience in my healing journey. I didn't even know how bad I felt until I started feeling good. And
yeah,
and and
totally.
then you go back to feeling awful and you're like, "How did I ever live like that?" Right? Like, it's like
Yes.
after a good workout and you feel so strong and then you're like, "Damn, I need to do that every day." It feels so great. It's that feeling, and so then you start getting more addicted to feeling good.
Mm,
And that's what I'm hearing from you too, is this it's a lifestyle thing of you now are focused so much more on how you feel and how you're contributing and you're being valuable. Like that is abundance, is
mm.
giving a gift to the world, like giving back. And of course, beautiful things are going to come back to you because of that. When you've met all these allies, me, all these other people in your life and are creating this opportunity for yourself. It's like, yeah, it's because of you're now coming from a place of feeling good.
And so that quote was success without fulfillment is the greatest failure.
Yeah.
It's interesting because that really resonates, especially because I spent 30 years in finance. And, we're in a crisis of in mental health. And in fact,
Yes.
like you're talking about disconnected from the body down, certainly in my generation, that's what we were told. Suck it up, don't be a pussy, power through it,
Yeah.
you know. And I really think there's a place out there to talk to men and to be like, look, this is an opportunity for you to really be like a hero. Like you're not going to land on Normandy Beach. If you come from my background and all that, of course, thank you to the veterans who do that. But, in my community, that's not really happened. And so like, what can you do as a man to like show your family and your kids that you're a hero? And it's honestly, it's not making more money. Like if you listen, there's hospice nurses come on like once a year. I always see this article about the top
Oh,
five regrets
regrets.
of people, and always, at least in America, is I work too much.
Hmm.
It's always the number one. And I just don't think like that's not gonna feel like success at the end. But like, let's leverage the fact that you can operate in the world really well, that you are successful, because then your healing can not only heal your family and your children's and your husband or wife, but it can help to heal the world
Yeah.
in a different way. So I just really think there's a way to orient now in life about being my own inner hero, essentially,
Yeah.
to benefit my people in the world.
Yeah. Speaking of your people, I want
Mhm.
to talk about how your relationship with your partner and your kids has changed and just how you've shown up differently as a father and what that's been like for you to witness yourself in that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like at the root, it's also just the general thing that's happening. That what has happened with me is I've gained choice to be the
Mm,
man that I want to be.
mm,
And so my nervous system has been calmed down enough that I am not reacting to things that I did that I didn't feel in control of.
yeah.
And so, for my partner, I think in previous partnerships, because my mom was my safest place, like I have a lot of energy around partnership. And a woman leaving me feels like like a annihilatory kind of death sentence. And
Yeah.
so before, I think when a partner would bring probably a very reasonable request to me, my nervous system would get so amped up that I couldn't really listen to her.
Mm,
And I started to defend or attack
yeah.
or whatever. And it was really because, like, all of a sudden the sensations just got so much. And like, I just knew there was a place at which I can't handle them. And
Mm,
so I would use like techniques or whatever, just of being a dick, honestly,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
as a way to like back off this situation. So now when Leah comes to me, and she'll tell you this, like, she can bring something to me and I can hold it. And sometimes I might be like, it's better for me to sleep on this because I still like it can feel the system kind
Sure.
of engaging, but I'm able to hear the requests of like a loving and awesome partner, which are not unreasonable.
Yeah.
And most of the time, like, she might have energy about bringing it to me, but I'm just like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's so much easier to do that. And most of these changes have happened since my daughter's been in college, so I'm just getting more direct experience with my son. But in fatherhood, I mean, one, I'm just less hard on him,
Mm, that's
and
beautiful.
I'm less hard on him, and I'm less seeing him as somebody to mold in a certain way, to toughen up, to this and that,
Mm,
and more of like, oh well, oh, I know what it's like to be like a 17-year-old and trying to get laid for your first time, or whatever it
yeah,
is,
yeah,
like, so like there's been a number of things that have happened where I just see myself being like, like, hey man, like, don't do that anymore. I mean, I wasn't
yeah,
that cool, but I used to do that too. Like, I remember when, and so I always bring something in, and now all of a sudden, instead of us being like kind of at odds, we're more like allies.
yeah,
And I more like appreciate his experience, and I can tap into it because I was also a 17-year-old boy who wanted to get laid and all the other things, that they want to do. And so, what has happened in that thing is like he's also more comfortable telling things about his experience with me that were difficult.
yeah.
And I'm more able to like heal those things. And my partner Leah was a family therapist for 20 years, and so she told me, she's like, this is really good that your
Yeah,
kids are able to kind of, that means they feel safe around you, that they know you better than anybody, that means they feel like that you can handle this.
yeah,
And kids are very adept, so you're not going to get your kids' life, you're not going to get their experience if your nervous system isn't calm enough. They know who the fuck you are.
yeah,
And so that you are not going to know your kids
yeah,
if you don't have a nervous system and a way of being that's calm enough to let them be like, yeah, because like, do you just want to get like either dismissive eye rolls or like only the things that they think you can handle, or do you want to know who your children are?
yeah.
And so like I feel like I know my kids better now
Mm,
than I did, and I feel like that I'm hopefully more like an ally of theirs that understands their experience, knows them really well, and that they don't have to change themselves and the way they're being to control my 50-some-year-old nervous system.
yeah,
That's a very different thing. Like, they have enough going on. It's very difficult for teens in this world, and they honestly should not have to, manage their mom and dad. And a lot of people, including myself, for a long time, like basically foisted that on them.
yeah,
To manage your father because he can't manage himself. And whether you're saying that overtly, that's what's happening. And it's not fair to them. So, like, this whole process, you are gonna know more about your partnerships. You're gonna know more about your kids. You're gonna have deeper friendships. It's gonna be a more authentic life
yeah,
because you're getting the real stuff, because people can trust you to handle it.
yeah,
And then when they can trust you, I mean, I have had these experiences now. I mean, I've had two people tell me about their sexual abuse that they've never told anybody else.
mm,
And both of them I had only met like an hour before,
yeah,
and it was like I feel like they were so yearning to like have somebody in their life, because you also like finds like, right? You find other people that are all fucking amped up, you know? So it's
Yes.
like, you know, and so like when I was able to be vulnerable about my story and come to them in a calm place,
Yeah.
they were able to tell it. And that's a huge step. I mean, everyone doesn't have to talk about their abuse, but when you do, it's beneficial to you and
Yeah.
it's beneficial to other people. And so my experience of life in all ways, partnership, friendship, business, everything, is just, it's radically different. It's fuller, it's more of the real experience. And I just feel so blessed. I mean, because like you said, you don't know what you don't have until you feel differently.
Yeah.
And so when I had that moment this year, I was just like, holy shit, this feels so different,
Mm.
and I felt so blessed to have that happen. And that's why I just want people, like, I believe everybody has this incredible light and that they were here for a reason, and I want them to like uncover it so they can feel like this, because it's great. It's the
Mhm.
best thing that's ever happened to me, and I've had a lot of the experiences that our culture values. I was an entrepreneur. I had like a super hot wife. I got beautiful kids. I've traveled all over the world. I mean, I've done all the things, sex, driving, all of it. And like none of it compares at all to the life that I'm living now, because I just feel so differently inside.
Yeah. I feel like I know we've talked about this so much like off air, but your heart is going to be the thing that like runs the show. And I just want to make that reflection because that's what it is like you're living now from your heart, and like
Mm,
your intuition and not from your head. And like going back to what we were talking about earlier, it's like this is the transition into an authentic life is when
mm,
we get out of our heads and we actually tap into what feels true to us and how can we stay open and loving and all of that. And there's no way your kids would ever be coming to you sharing all that they did if they didn't feel safe with you, which means you feel safe with you, which is huge. Like
yeah.
that's such a powerful shift when obviously for so long you haven't felt safe because you experienced all of the trauma, basically had a brain injury, right? And so there's no safety. And so it's such a testament to like how far you've come in your journey, even just in the past few years,
Yeah.
of
I
like,
mean, this year has been, I mean, literally in the 9 or 10 months of this year, the movement, because this thing builds on itself. So
yeah,
once the nervous system calms down, then when you see things in your past or whatever that you would have had difficulty working with, now you can work with them and you can work with them faster. And yeah, it's been such a blessing. And I love that let's let the heart run the show. Like imagine how the world would be if we did that.
yeah,
And yeah, I would love it. I would, I hope to do that. And I also just want to like put out there, like, I am in no way like some finished product, and this is not about like attaining some guru status or any of that. I mean, it's really just saying like, look, like we're all on this path, and I have come down the path far enough, and the dragons I had to slay on my hero's journey, they're not the worst, but they're also not the easiest. And I have made it to here.
yeah,
And like, really, like, I want this to be a community of people that are like helping each other out. So, like, I know there are many people, hopefully, there are many people watching this that are much further down the path than me and could, offer me some advice.
yeah,
What's it like at this point? I'm going through this experience and things are coming up. I mean, still, like, that shame thought that I told you about, that I'm a bad person and nobody should love me, I mean, that has been animating my life, my whole life. But I really just actually heard it as a voice in the past 2 months.
mm,
And when I heard it, I've told people this story and people are like, oh my God. And I was like, actually, that was fucking awesome, because I knew it was there.
yeah,
I knew it was there. And I was like, oh, now I know what it is and I can deal with it. And, how I oriented around dealing with it was, it's funny. It's been easier for me to forgive my sexual abuser than my dad.
mm,
And when I tapped into it, I thought that was going to be related to the sexual abuse, but it really wasn't. It was, basically this deep down inside feeling like, how could you be a good person if even your dad didn't love you?
Mm,
And I think my dad did love me, but that was the story that I told. I mean, he didn't express it, and he didn't, play with, he didn't do the things that a dad would do to show love. But now I look at it like, okay, to heal that, I have to offer the love and forgiveness to my dad that he was unable to offer me, and I'm working with it, and that thing is still at play with me. I mean, for sure, but I also feel like I understand how to work with it. And so what's happened that's been beautiful about that is I've started to look at like me as part of, like I'm part of a lineage and my dad is part of it. And my son and daughter are part of it. And there's all these future souls out of it. And that now, like, I'm sort of like working with my dad to like help to heal our
mm,
lineage together.
yeah.
And so by like forgiving him and showing him the love and attention and forgiveness that he really didn't offer me, like, one, I can be like, fuck you, I'm better than you. But no, but just to be like, look, we
Yeah.
are like the whole point of this thing is we're aligned. And I hope, well, I know Apollo and Athena are going to be a lot better people than I was, but I mean, that we're moving down, and so like this is happening in real time for me,
Yeah.
and I'm never going to say that I'm anything more than I am. And there are times when my nervous system is too much and all the things, but I'm also able to see it and manage that very quickly
Yeah.
and be like, hey, I said that that wasn't what I meant, and I can do that. So I just want this to really be like a community of people together
Yeah.
who will help each other and offer what they can to somebody that's not as far down the path, and also accept that help,
Yeah.
because none of us are in a place where we can't get a little help and support.
Yeah. I love that the show is called The Neuro's Journey because it's
Mhm.
like modeled after the hero's journey, right? And it's like it's a forever process. Like it's like writing a book that never ends until
Mhm.
we die.
Yeah.
And it's like I think that it's going to be really fun and dynamic and wild to witness where the show goes, and I'm so excited for the future episodes and all the guests you have on and all the stories you're going to tell and all the healing that's going to happen from this because like I feel like you're just really willing to go there. Not everyone is. And
Mhm.
the way that you open up with like radical authenticity is I just know healing. It's so healing. It was healing for me when I first met you and we were chatting about even bringing this project to life. And I know that everyone that you share your story with is deeply touched and they're so compelled. They're like, tell us more, tell us more. So I know that you continuing to share your story and helping people rewrite theirs is going to be just such a huge ripple effect. And I just want to kind of wrap up and end with like, your vision, your mission for the Neuro's journey. Like, talk to us about it. Tell us anything else that you want everyone listening or watching to hear for what you have in mind, or just for the intention that you're setting for the show as well.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, yeah, the neuro's just kind of like the hero's journey into your own mind and psyche. And, I mean, I guess at the base of it, I want people to know that they're not alone, and that other people have been through these kinds of things, and that, that there is healing out there. So there's going to be a lot of people who have stories, and I'm going to continue to tell my own story and just be vulnerable and authentic about it. But I'm also bringing a lot of doctors on who have modalities, and working with psychedelics. My partner Leah Mix, we scanned her brain before she did the very powerful treatment of ibogaine psychedelic, and we did a podcast, and then we scanned her brain after, and we're scanning her brain again. And so we're going to talk about a lot of things that are basically relating to how we talked about this armor. I think that what I thought and our culture values is growth.
Yeah.
Add more, get more, more, more. And really, I think a lot of this is going to be like, can we slowly pull away at your armor a little bit?
Mm,
And where you can trust enough in the world and in life that like you are actually safe.
Yeah.
and that you can really shine your light out. And so it's going to be about that. Like, what are ways, what are techniques, what is neurofeedback, how does it work, how does it impact your brain? Like, we'll have doctors on about that. We'll talk with people. I'm tapped into a lot of finance people because that was my career, and a lot of them are doing a lot of really cool stuff with their life to show people like, hey, you can switch. And it feels, when you have a lot of success and you attain it and you think that's going to do something for yourself, there's a deep sense of emptiness when you get it
Mm,
and it doesn't happen.
yeah.
So basically, telling stories, hopefully like reacting to what people want to hear and
Yeah.
want to know about. I mean, I'm just blessed to be in a community of people and healers. I know a lot of people,
Yeah.
and so we're going to bring them on, from men's group leaders to artists to musicians to doctors to people that have just weaved their way through this story, to just say like, hey, we're all in this together, and like what's inside of you that's beautiful is there, and you might not even see it, and you might not even think you have access to it, but I can tell you that you can access it.
Mm,
Like, I know for sure, I have lived this thing. And I've also been so blessed in this to talk to a lot of people who've had much worse things go on than me. And, some of them have had really hard lives. I mean, these things are hard.
yeah.
But I know for 100% fact that you can change your life. You can feel the way that you never thought you deserved to feel. And you do that by essentially curiosity, courage, and action. Just
Mm,
through that process, we'll learn about each other, we'll support each other, and hopefully this will be like a good thing for this community and the world.
yeah. I love it. I just want to just encourage you. I know we're gonna keep doing this for
Yeah.
so long, but like to just keep shining your light. And I feel like just your heart, really living in your heart and letting people see that is going to be the heartbeat of the show for sure. But I know that so many listeners and viewers are going to find so much peace in your episodes and healing. And I know with certainty and conviction that you will have so many people share their transformational life stories with you because of the show. I know that. And so that's the intention I'm setting, that it really does impact millions of people, and that your story and all the people that you have on shows people what's possible, that any comeback is possible, with the right tools, the right stories, the right being seen and heard, and feeling understood, and like, oh, there's a chance. There's a chance for me, you know?
Yeah, well, that would be awesome, and I so hope that happens. And I love to hear transformational stories. Like, so if if you want to like say them, DM me, whatever. I mean, it feels
Yeah.
good when you hear people and the successes of the people. The more of that, and if you're struggling, like the
Yeah.
stories, like I can resonate with both sides of it. The struggle and the feeling lost and lonely and damaged, and I can also resonate with a lot of positivity. And I just want to help more of the positivity in the world. And I love you so much, Sam. We
Mm,
like connected
love
from
you
our
too,
very
Steve.
first time.
Yes.
And yeah, I feel really blessed that you took this time for this and
Yeah.
are the kind of person you are, and that we're doing this together.
Yeah, me too. I feel very grateful and honored, and I just want to tell everyone that's listening and watching to subscribe, like this, send this to somebody who needs to hear it. Share your stories in the comments. Like I know that there will be comments. Like I know that there will be stories of people like, holy shit, like we need more of this. Like we need more of this conversation, and I know that you're here to bring that. And so yeah, I'm honored, I'm grateful, I'm so excited to keep bringing this project to life. And yeah, cheers to the metaphoricals, cheers to the Neuro's journey, because it's going to be great. And yeah, so honored.
All
Yeah.
right, thank you so much,
Thank
Sam.
you.
Thank you so much for joining the Neuro's Journey podcast. If this episode landed, share it with someone who needs to hear it. The real medicine is in the connection, and this community only grows when we reach for each other. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming, and if you have a minute, leaving a rating really helps more people find this work. And keep showing up for your own journey. Every small act of courage matters, for you, for the people around you, and for all of us. I am so grateful to be walking this path with you.